Hello, Heatseekers. It's the Heat Sheet. Hello, Heatseekers. It is the final edition of the Heat Sheet of 2024. You join us in that wee bit between Christmas, between Christmas and New Year. Some people call it Twixmas, others call it No Man's Land. Some people have heard refer to it as the Christmas taint, the bit in between the taint your arse and taint your balls, because it taint Christmas and it taint New Year either. But we are here on the Heat Sheet to give you a rundown of what's been hitting our headlines over the last wee while. And as ever, I am joined by Lewis McNaughton from Dundee and Steve Mysterio from not quite Mexico, not quite whatever part of Glasgow it is you're from. Lads, how are these doing this evening?
Feliz Navidad, amigos.
You need to keep the bit going, Steve. Everything needs to be in Espanol for the rest of the pod.
Buenos nuevo año.
I'll stick in prime Scottish. Not bad. It's been all good. Missing a fair bit of the wrestling purely because, as it comes to this stage, if it's not readily accessible, then you tend to miss it. But that's a good segue to now being readily accessible on the week from tonight. I've took the day off work the next day. That's how sad I am. Purely because I'm expecting big things, and if I don't, then that's fucking one day of annual leave I'll never get back.
So you're doing the Ian Connell thing of instead of the Royal Rumble, it's everybody knows I take Netflix and Raw day after off work.
I can't tell them what it's for. I think they already know by now. I've slipped in a few fucking wrestling comments. They're like, "Oh, you're the wrestling nerd now, aren't you?"
Well, see, this is the thing that Netflix is going to bring to the table, and again, we're going to do a bit of a deeper dive into the WWE moving on to Netflix over the course of the podcast. But this is probably the biggest mainstream move that wrestling's had in quite some time. So I don't think it's going to be something that wrestling fans will be stigmatized about anymore. I think it is going to, if everything goes well, it is going to launch wrestling back into the mainstream, and it's going to be cool, even if it is only for the first 6 months that it's cool, or until Netflix work out all the buffering issues and whatnot. But I think 2025 is the year that all us neckbeards are going to be able to rejoice, and some of them might even get their hole as well. But in the style of the Heat Sheet, as we've done all year, we are going to look at the wrestling world in the form of our fake dirt sheet. So we're going to look at what's making the front page, the back page, page 3 as well. And we're also going to have a sort of mini award show towards the end of this episode, where we look at the best of wrestling over 2024. But as always, we're going to kick off with crowning the front page. But we're going to do it slightly differently, as we alluded to just there. Coming out of 2024, arguably the biggest front page or the biggest news in the wrestling world is that WWE Raw is moving to Netflix as of January 6th. Chris Jericho and his wife, unfortunately, will not be appearing on this January 6th thing. It's as far as we know so far. But for January 6th, 2025, it's going to be Raw to Netflix Day. So, although you're taking the day off work to come to that, Lewis, while you've got your connectivity issues, Steve, we'll come to you first. What are you most excited about with regards to Raw on Netflix?
Oh, it's got to be the Punk versus Seth Rollins match, because that's billed as the marquee match towards it. I even think they'll just put that on first, just because it's two main event marquee names and two reliable performers. And if they hit the numbers that they think they're going to hit, they've got something big planned for it. So, and I can't think of two guys they can trust more to kind of really hit a home run with it as well.
Yep, it's a feud that's been brewing pretty much since Punk first came back to the Fed when he walked out at Survivor Series last year, and the animosity was absolutely rife from Rollins, and on what's probably going to be their second biggest stage of the year behind WrestleMania. putting those two front and centre is going to be a great introduction or reintroduction or a rejuvenation for a lot of wrestling fans. In terms of the whole sort of move to Netflix, Lewis, are you expecting the programming or the storylines to be a bit edgier than what they've been on terrestrial television? Do you think there's going to be anything different to the production and to the presentation of Raw going forward?
I would hope that at the start there's something different with the presentations, like stages, things like that. I know everything they do in WWE right now is purely geared towards efficiency and how quickly they can do things, how easy they can do things, but keep it at a high level. So the stages that they do now and obviously the setup of the ring and everything like this. And when they do big pay-per-views, like the sort of baseball style entrances, all that, you get the odd person saying that they miss the the big sort of backlash swinging scythes and the Judgment Day sets and everything like that. And I am one that misses that because it never ever appears except at WrestleMania. So I think even if it's for the first week, they need to do something that is out of the ordinary, and whether they stick with that and they manage to find a healthy medium of a nice set that isn't just purely based on LED screens, and find something that's different but still as as easy to transport and set up when they can, is probably the best way to do it. Because seeing the same old Raw that comes, the last 3 years we've had the same sort of setup. If that goes on to Netflix, and what's really changing about the layout, people might just say, "Oh, I've seen this before," that sort of thing. Especially if you're trying to get to the new audience, you want something that wows them straight away and keeps them going. With the edgy stuff, I don't know. I think that's going to be something they'll just have in their hipper now. It's just an extra weapon in the arsenal that they can use when need be. WWE's managed to get on this steady incline and even rapid incline recently, with maybe not making it slightly edgier within the terms and conditions they've had. So as the way it's going, it's an incline. It's on the up. It's becoming cool again. That sort of thing. They don't really need to change too much in the way the stories are told and the way everything's gone. But it's just maybe the terms of those blood feuds and things like that we've had can maybe go that little bit further. Like with the Rock and Cody, that went pretty far, and with Cody with Rollins and McIntyre, Punk and McIntyre, sorry, that went pretty far. But maybe they can even go that slight little bit further that they would never have been allowed to. So I think it's just going to be for those special events to start, and for those special feuds to start. And who knows, it might just become a thing where it just slowly edges towards a bit more edgy over time.
Yeah, 100%. I think they've got great scope to push the boundaries that wee bit further. Than in pushing those boundaries, they're going to get more eyes on the product, because ideally they want it to be can't miss television or can't miss streaming. And one of the ways that I think we're going to do that is by building up some new stars. The guys that WWE have relied on over the last 10 or so years, like Rollins, Reigns, Cody, Kevin Owens, etc. Those names amongst the wrestling fans are they're well known and they're well respected. But this is a chance to push them even further into the multimedia universe. It's a chance for them to become, I was going to say cross-platform, but that's not the term I mean. It's going to make them a lot more mainstream, but there is a massive opportunity there as well for brand new stars to be made. This Netflix era that's coming up, there's guys and girls on the WWE rosters that could see just that they've one great match, one great promo over the next couple of months, and that just absolutely rocket slaps them to the moon. Is there anybody that you think, Steve, that will that should get a massive rub off the back of this Netflix deal?
Tiffany Stratton is one that immediately springs to mind.
Yeah,
she's marketability, value. She's charismatic. I think Netflix bosses would just instantly look on and say to Triple H, "Push her to the moon, please. We like her." I think they'll also want a sort of a real badass kind of heel character. in there as well. I mean, right now they've got guys like Drew and like Gunter to kind of fill those roles. But I think long term they'll want somebody moulded more into that role that Netflix would want to even make their own show for. So I think Bron Breakker, if they can tweak him a wee bit,
Yeah,
they could give him that as well. They'll also want to see some more diverse characters get pushed. So I can also see likes Camilo Hales. I can see him kind of doing well out of it in the long term. I can also see guys like Grayson Waller and Austin Theory really run amok with it. They're kind of the two kind of douchey, kind of charismatic heels, kind of like the Paul Brothers kind of thing. I can see them even getting their own wee spin-off show from Netflix. So guys like that are going to be the ones that long term going to get a kind of big rub out of all this.
Now, from a lot of the stuff that WWE have been doing with Netflix over the last wee while, with all the vignettes, they had like the big press conference rally type thing a couple of weeks ago as well. It was quite interesting to see that Becky Lynch was cropping up on a good few of those things. There's still no word as yet as to whether she has officially re-signed with WWE or not yet. But would you be surprised, Lewis, if we didn't see the man at some point on Netflix?
Yeah, yeah, I think that we've all been under the impression that she has either quietly, re-signed, or she's, in the process of doing so, and she's just had some time off that she's deserved by being the man in the last few years. She's worked fairly hard. She's got the women into more prominent positions. So yeah, she's deserved this time off. Was it injuries she's had, or is it just contract disputes?
I think a bit of both. I think it's been.
She's like you said, she's had little issues in her life and that needed sorted out, her health and everything. So I think it was always going to happen. Her and Charlotte will be back at some point in the near future, and I do find it weird that they've brought her back with no promotion of her actually being in the company, but they've clearly had their arm twisted. We need the biggest female star you've got, and we've got Becky Lynch. We can't know her on it. So I know we like to keep kayfabe and keep it secret and all this and that, but that kind of shows that Becky Lynch is back and she'll be on the screens very soon.
And speaking of people being back on screens, with this arguably being the biggest thing to happen to WWE in quite some time, is The Rock going to turn up on January 6th? Do you reckon, Steve, that Dwayne is going to come back and milk that appearance for all it's worth?
I think so. If there's anybody in the world that knows when to cash in at the right time, it's Mr. Johnson, isn't it? And I think him being a TKO board member, I think he knows he needs to be a team player here, and show up and use all those those media layouts that he's got handy. I know a bit of his stock has fallen maybe in the last year or two because he's had some flops. Red One went immediately to streaming here, so perhaps his influence has dwindled a fair bit. But still, he is very much an A-lister, known worldwide. One of the most instantly recognisable celebrities in the world. And TKO, will bend over backwards for him and say, "Look, can you please shop at Raw in Jan 6th, because we really want to hit this to launch into the stratosphere. And plus, given it's in LA, it shouldn't be too much for him to travel to as well."
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting show to watch anyway, and I don't know if I'll be taking the day off work. Oh, in fact, no, I'm already off on the 7th of January, actually, so happy days. I can batter and I can stay up and watch it. Just remember that there. But definitely, one of the biggest stories of the year that has been Raw's move to Netflix. Over the course of 2024, we've spoken about a lot of the biggest stories for you guys. What have been the biggest headlines in the wrestling world over the past 12 months?
It's hard to get away from the whole McMahon lawsuit, isn't it? I know it's all grim and stuff of nightmares, but I mean BBC had covered it. It was in all the newspapers here, and it happened right at the worst time. Arguably, it was right when the TKO merger was announced and WrestleMania was on the horizon, the biggest ever WrestleMania. And then because it leads into the Netflix documentary that came on in the autumn there. Although annoyingly they didn't really cover it in any great detail. But I mean the fact that I had like mates that hadn't talked to me about wrestling in donkey's years come up to me going like, "Holy fucking shit! What is Vince McMahon? Is he an absolute maniac?" Just says it all.
Yeah, it's been a big one. What about yourself, Lewis? What's kind of been the biggest headlines of the past year for you?
I feel like it's hard to stray away from the bloodline stuff and everything as well, but I think the rise of Cody Rhodes as well, from what they say about undeniable to undisputed,
Yeah,
that sort of thing. Yeah, he's managed to fill a massive gap that Roman left, and probably what Cena left. I would say. I've talked about in some of the videos over the advent calendar about how there's not been any real massive baby faces since then. Daniel Bryan had his moment. You've had Roman Reigns having his moment as baby faces, and Seth Rollins having their moments, and all this. But there's never been that one dependable man that they can. I know this is a really niche thing to sort of determine that on, but you've got Cody on CBBS and things like this.
Yeah.
A massive crossover star of he's mixed in with all these massive British and American, just presenters and celebrities and everything, and they trust him enough to be, that guy that represents the brand. And obviously you've had Roman the last 4 years, but you can't really have a heel doing that. It's breaks kayfabe as quickly as it's made. But having that, that face, I think you've generally got, you do have to look back as far as Cena. Randy's had his time being a heel and a face and heel and a face, but everyone wants Cody to turn heel. I think it will happen at some point, but I do think he's at that Cena level in our time. That sort of mega babyface that is thrown onto all the mainstream media to promote them as a company. So I think they'll want to turn them heel, and I think stories will point that way, and they'll make them it almost feel as though Cody has to turn heel, but I think keeping him face as long as possible, and just his rise from being, Stardust, being this guy that's just in feuds with Seth Rollins, to being the main man is probably my story of the year, alongside obviously Vince McMahon doing his fucking shit.
Yep. I think, there's not been an awful lot on the other side for the AEW that's really kind of, hit the headlines positively. We can all see they've got dwindling crowds. The product's been quite cold for a good while. But you still can't take away the fact that All In was another massive success, commercially, in terms of the number of bums and seats, and in the event itself. A lot of great matches. You had Nigel McGuinness coming back during the Battle Royal in there, and you had the amazing feel good moment of Bryan Danielson winning the title at it as well. But they never seem to capitalise on that, and I think that's quite headline worthy. The fact that they had such a great show, they paid off a lot of stuff, paid off a lot of storylines. They've been trying to establish new talent, but for whatever reason, they just can't seem to get it to stick. There's no momentum. Even coming out of
consistency, I think I said this the last time we met. It's the lack of consistency with AEW is so frustrating.
Yeah, and even we're going to get onto it in a wee second when we talk about World's End. But even coming out of World's End this year, you had great C2 matches. You had the semi-finals and the final in there. Other really good matches on it, but the main event just felt like such a letdown. The whole Death Riders kind of storyline doesn't seem to be catching fire, and now Adam Copeland's involved in it. There's nothing enthusing me about that. So I'm hoping that 2025 things can really kick on and push on and get them hitting the headlines for the right reasons. The last thing I was going to say as well, one of the biggest stories that we haven't really managed to cover is the New Day heel turn of a couple of weeks back. You know, the way that was executed was absolutely, it was equal parts disgusting and brilliant at the same time.
Unexpected as well.
Something completely unexpected. You know, they've been teasing Woods and Kofi splitting up for a while, and then bringing E into it, and then just, you know, being so cold and callous with them. It was incredible television. So that's, you know, a kind of a late entry for one of my wrestling headlines of the year anyway. But you know, there was plenty to keep us talking, you know, throughout the year. If you want to hear what headlines we hit previously, go back through the YouTube or Spotify and watch and listen to what we all talked about. But it has been a great year for wrestling. Even, you know, at times when I've been a bit jaded with it, you know, when all of us have been unable to watch it for whatever reason, our group chat has popped off with something that's kept it going, and we've been fortunate enough to be able to speak to you, those of you who listen and those of you who watch. So it's been great doing that over the last year on that. Now, if you are familiar with the show, you'll know that after the front page comes the back page, where we look at the best in-ring of the last wee while, and this is kind of pretty much going to be our World's End review. Now, Steve, you've probably the one of the three of us that I think's probably watched or got the most out of World's End. I've only managed to see a few of the matches. I don't know about yourself, Lewis.
A couple.
How much you caught it. But what really stood out to you from All Elite Wrestling World's End this past weekend?
Well, the two big returns that happened are big news, and I think it's two guys that they've been needing. Adam Copeland returning, as you mentioned, immediately forming a new team with FTR, rated FTR, which has got a nice ring to it, I'd say. I don't know. I don't fully agree with him immediately going in and challenging Moxley, just kind of out of nowhere like that. But as a marquee feud, it's two other immediately recognisable main event stars. So I'm looking forward to it nonetheless. And obviously Kenny Omega. I think we all kind of knew it was going to happen, but we know he's making his official in-ring return next week in New Japan at Wrestle Dynasty. I think, which I only found out today, it's the same day as Raw on Netflix. So that's going to be very interesting.
January 6th, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it not usually January 4th for the Wrestle Kingdom?
Wrestle Kingdom's...
Looks like we've lost Steve a wee bit there.
Oh, I think he's trying to come back as well.
Your video seems to have gone off there. It's all right. It says that it's still recording you, so just keep going.
Sorry, Wrestle Dynasty is the one that they're crossing over with AW1. So this is like New Japan's version of Forbidden Door kind of thing. It's where Mercedes Moné's facing Mina Shirakawa as well.
Right, yeah.
But it's just exciting because we're finally getting the Okada Mega feud on the Western side. I mean, hopefully, I hope they'll keep it for. They'll probably do one for Revolution, then follow up with the Australia show, because obviously they need a big marquee main event for that, and because it's still scheduled for a stadium apparently, so they want a big show for that. But I can't wait for it. I'm just hoping that Omega can get the ring rust off him in time for it to really mean something.
Yeah, it was a weird one. I watched Okada obviously win the C2 with his match with Ospreay, and then at the end of it, Omega came out. But it didn't look like he was moving particularly well. You know, I know that, you know, he has had, you know, diverticulitis and he's been recovering from a lot of injuries, but he didn't look like a fit man. Or he didn't look like a fit version of Kenny Omega. I know that it's hard to tell that when he's like fully suited and booted and whatnot, but he wasn't moving as freely or as suavely as what he normally does. And I wonder if that's just a bit of a ruse to kind of like downplay how well he actually has they covered or whatnot. But just like the fleeting moments that I saw of that, I was like, I don't know if he looks steady.
See that there? It could be a type of a thing that he, when you if you play football or whatever, you come back from an injury, you're always wary. You're kind of moving in a way, you're kind of pulling out of tackles, you're doing this and that, you're not wanting to hurt yourself. It might just be the case of that, even just the way he's moving outside the ring, it might just be him, one, trying to protect himself, two, just trying to get along as well as possible. Because I don't think the amount of time he's been off and the fact he's facing, a Gabe Kidd, all that, it's these sort of matches that he doesn't need to be in. It's like they wouldn't bring him back if he wasn't fully able to go. I think they've probably given it more time than necessary. It's one of those things where Kenny Omega is one of the best wrestlers in the world, and bringing him back, it would be like bringing, Will Ospreay or Seth Rollins or someone back half healthy, and people go, "What's happened?" You want to bring them back at full fitness, you want to bring them back at full strength, and you want them to come back and put on a 5-star match instantly. So I think that's probably what they're doing. If it's just maybe one of those things, like you said, they're trying to downplay it, or maybe he's just on the sort of defensive of his health, I think he'll come back and put on another 5-star classic instantly.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how well his recovery has gone, and to see the best bout machine come back, because there's no doubt that Kenny Omega is a massive, massive draw for the AEW. And he could be the one to kind of kickstart or relight the fire in them in 2025 if he does come back all guns blazing on there. So that was two comebacks that we had at World's End. We also had on World's End, as we mentioned there, we had the culmination of the Continental Classic. Two really, really good semi-final matches leading to, I don't think the final was as good as the two semis, but again, you're looking at two wrestlers that have already wrestled the bones of 20 minutes. Ospreay losing a lot of blood in that first match as well. But for them to go out and put on very, very high caliber matches like that was unreal. What were your kind of highlights of the two semis and the final, Steve?
Yeah, they're both great matches. I think the Ospreay Fletcher match was great. I don't think they're in the midst of this bitter feud, and it didn't at times feel like it. I know that sounds crazy, given Ospreay get busted open and all this, but it still didn't feel like they were in the midst of the feud. I think they could play that off as a storyline, as like, because it was a semi-final, that I take the personal kind of aspect out of it, because they both are solely focused on winning the tournament. So and I think the commentators picked up on that, saying like they've got to put the personal aspect of it to the side and focus just on being professional, winning the match. And I think Ricochet he's kind of came the kind of surprise heel, hasn't he? It was really interesting seeing afterwards Swerve coming out and he getting all the bog roll thrown on him.
Aye.
So he's kind of, who'd have thought he's going to come out as the kind of psycho heel?
Well, I mean, they're leaning right into that. Obviously, with the AEW shows that were on at the Hammerstein Ballroom last week, Ricochet was getting pelted with toilet roll at that. So they've leaned into the fact that people are not taking to him in the way that they'd hoped. He's been shunned by the Hurt Syndicate. He's coming across as this kind of cocky, chicken shit heel, bit geeky kind of guy.
Aye.
And even, I think there was a promo on Dynamite, or a segment on Dynamite a couple of weeks back, where Swerve and him spoke about, the time in Lucha Underground together, and coming up together, that kind of thing. So I'm interested to see where that goes. And again, it is quite childish humour with the toilet roll stuff, but it's playing on something that happened organically. It's not something that's just been shoehorned in for the sake of it. It's been a reaction to a reaction. which I quite liked about that. And his match with Okada was great as well. You know, it took a while to get going, but when it did get going, it was really good. I enjoyed the Okada slapping his baldy head spot. I enjoyed that very much. And just every one of Okada's drop kicks just looks like the smoothest thing ever. It's just like remarkable. Like when I was doing my stuff in the ring, I loved hitting drop kicks, but I was lucky if I was getting, if I was kicking anyone in the tit, let alone the head.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing them executed as well as that is just love it. Absolutely love it. Now, the final itself, are you happy with Okada retaining his Continental Championship?
Yeah, I mean, I had knew from the get-go it's either Okada or Ospreay that was winning it, so I wasn't surprised to see that as a final. And I think I'm kind of glad that Okada retains it. I think that keeps it prestigious, because I think if the longer one guy keeps a hold of it, the more prestigious it becomes. And of course, it's something to immediately set up him and Omega reigniting the old feud if there's a title involved as well.
Do you think at some point we get Okada versus Takeshita to amalgamate the titles?
Got to be. I think I think that's a dream match they're doing further down the line, aren't they? Maybe if they maybe want to look into doing running their own Japan show, maybe further down the line, that'll probably be the main event of it.
That'd be a good one there. We also had on the show MJF and Adam Cole, hopefully tying up every loose end to get this feud done with. Lewis, is this one of the matches that you caught?
Yeah. It kind of played it played its role in the further in the story. You know what I mean? I didn't think it was particularly one of the best matches I've seen MJF or Adam Cole have. It wasn't one of the most brutal matches I've seen, but it was decent enough. It was good, and it obviously played its role into Adam Cole reuniting with the Undisputed Kingdom, and obviously Roddy Strong and Kyle O'Reilly and that, and hopefully he'll get back on track, because like we've seen, he's been injured, he's been in shit storylines, he's done this, he's done that, and he's not the Adam Cole we've known from the start of NXT Black and Gold and the start of his AEW run as well, where he was putting on banger matches, can't miss matches, and yeah, he'll just want to get back and prove that, alongside the other four as well, that they are some of the best wrestlers in the world, and hopefully this leads, maybe MJF to new things.
I think they just need to get away from each other. Yeah. I think, because, at various points during the match, they've been trying to present Adam Cole as the babyface and MJF as the heel, but at points during the match and during the feud, you wouldn't be able to tell who it is. I mean, even with Cole taking the diamond ring and going after the MJF with it towards the end of the match, you're thinking he wouldn't do that. If he was a pure face, he wouldn't do that. And even like the Undisputed Kingdom, don't know where they sit as a faction. Are they a heel faction? Are they a face faction? They're not over enough to be a tweener faction, in my opinion. So it's a very, very odd one. But I think they just need to get them as far away from each other. I'd seen, I might be wrong with who this was, but I think it was Ibu from Vessel Purists on X was saying that he thinks MJF has outgrown AEW. And he's starting to get a bit stale. And then Dustin Rhodes had kind of fired back at him saying, MJF's still in his mid-20s, he's got plenty of career to go. That he's still only really starting out. So, one feud or one storyline doesn't make a career unless you're absolutely shit. But, how does MJF re-elevate himself, I suppose? At this moment in time, with Adam Copeland, Christian, Darby Allin all in the AEW title mix, you've got to imagine Ospreay's going to end up back in there at some point as well. How does MJF get back to being the top heel in that company?
He really needs to find a new dance partner to really get under the skin. I think the one that kind of springs to mind is reignite the feud with Daniel Garcia. Daniel Garcia's the TNT champ. If he beats him and takes that title off him, he becomes the new member of the Triple Crown club. In fact, he'll become the first guy to hold the World, International and the TNT. So he'd become the first guy to win the 3 major single titles in the company. So that would give him a kind of feather in the cap. And I just want to see him feud with Swerve. Because that's just get box office written all over it. The promos, the two sick as fuck individuals who who are willing to make it personal, willing to kind of both go for the low hanging fruit. I think the TV alone would be great. The matches would be great. Just get him and Swerve together and make some magic happen. I think I would love to also. I want to see Wardlow come back. I know I know he's a guy they keep dropping the ball with, but bring back Wardlow. Maybe have a storyline where MJF brings Wardlow back in as he's sort of right hand man, but this time promises him, this isn't kind of employer employee stuff anymore. I want you as my right hand man, and I promise you'll reap as much rewards out of it as you can. Only for them to maybe, one stab the other in the back when the other's not looking, kind of thing.
Well, the issue with that you've got is that's going to tie Adam Cole back in now, because presumably Wardlow is still part of the Undisputed Kingdom, even though he wasn't present last night. So is Kyle O'Reilly taking his place?
It made no sense
in that faction.
Like, Wardlow just stood there with a sore thumb in that whole group. It just didn't look right at all.
I think that sometimes with AEW the issue is that you're going through MJF stuff there, and it does seem like it's stuff he's done before, or it's the angles he's been in before and this sort of thing. So when they talk about outgrowing it, I kind of understand the point, but AEW sometimes been in a position where the only new feuds they kind of create are when they sign someone else. You know what I mean? That's what I feel like. It's like they sign Ricochet.
Somebody making a return after 6 months.
Yeah, I know. They sign Ricochet. Now we can do all this stuff with Ricochet that we can put him against Ospreay. We can put him against this person. Put him against this person. That gives Ospreay another feud for 6 months or 3 months before we sign this new person. And when they maybe go through a lull, I think that could be potentially what it is. When they go through a lull of no new signings or no new people coming back, that's when it just seems like filler TV that we've seen millions and millions of times. So they it's as if WWE manages to do certain things where they've either gathered enough history, that they can call back to something that didn't happen just 2 years ago, it happened 10 years ago. That's a new level of fans, Seth Rollins
second generation stuff with Cody
exactly,
and all that as well.
But you're the same fan that AEW caught 5 years ago. And you remember this. So it's things like that where people stay off TV a lot of the time from WWE and that as well. They only have 4-match shows. They only have 5-match shows. They have a lot of promos and things on TV. Whereas you're getting a lot of these matches, like countless Will Ospreay matches there's been now, and I'll never complain about seeing a Will Ospreay match, but he's on every single pay-per-view. He's on the Japan pay-per-views facing against AEW people. He's tagging with WWE people, but AEW people. But when it comes to WWE, you're not seeing Roman Reigns for a long time. You're not seeing Seth Rollins every single week unless it's to further this one storyline, and I think it's maybe Khan pulls the trigger a bit too much, and he needs to, slow things down to make more matches plausible and credible in the long term. But we always love seeing, we've got Okada and Fletcher against Ospreay in the same night and everything like that, and it's brilliant. But then again, he's shot 2 bullets when he only needs to shoot 1 sometimes.
Aye.
So.
And speaking of shooting bullets and kind of the murder that you could kind of get from that. It takes us on to the main event of World's End, where the Death Riders, the boys that have been trying to murder and maim the AEW roster for the last wee while. It was they were all involved in the main event of John Moxley defending his championship against Hangman, Jay White, and Orange Cassidy. Now, I've not seen this match. I've seen the afters that involved FTR and Copeland, but from everything I've read on it, it's like, what was the point in it? What is the point?
Yeah,
you know,
the match was just there to just set up the return of Copeland. That was it. It felt like I was just watching it, even after just 3 or 4 minutes. I thought this should have just been in Dynamite, because there was 0 point in it. And what pissed me off is, like, this took away from the C2. World's End should just be used as the C2. That should just be focused on, like, bugger having a world title match. Not every pay-per-view needs a world title match. Use the C2 as the big blow off.
Have that as the main event.
Exactly, because I mean, we knew Kenny was coming back, so I mean that would have been a big thing. Why not? And then why not have left this for Dynamite? Because again, it's AEW not thinking properly, because they've got a big thing coming up themselves. The next Dynamite, the New Year Dynamite, is the first Dynamite streamed on Max. So logic would have it, let's have a world title fight scheduled for that show, make a bit of money. I know they've got Fight for the Fallen set up, and it's set in FTR's hometown as well, and that was a town that had a really devastating flood a few months back. So I get that they've done well, I guess, in kind of promoting that, but you want to make money here. Why not have kept this off World's End and have that set up as the main event for your first Dynamite on Max?
See, it could be the case, again, this is maybe fantasy booking, that first one on Max, you get Christian cashing in as a result of, Adam Copeland doing something with Moxley, like lays him out, Christian Cage comes down, cashes in his contract, and then to start this new HBO era, we've got Christian Cage as the champ. Because remember when Rampage started, the first main event on Rampage was Christian Cage become the TNA champion. So it could be, and again, it's not the same, but having somebody that the casual fan would know of as a champion for that move, pretty much like when they had Jericho be the first champion, to give the brand credibility, could be something to do with that. Looking at it subjectively, I suppose, or objectively, I always get those two mixed up. But like, why would you give Christian that guaranteed title shot if you're not going to do something good with it? Especially when you think back to All In and all the guys that were in that match, they could have done something brilliant with that opportunity. Why is it Christian?
And if I'm not mistaken, the 3 challengers were they not all involved in that match? The All In one, the Battle Royal? Hangman definitely was.
Aye.
And Cassidy was as well. So
no, Jay White was injured. Jay White missed all in.
But then he was feuding with Jay White in the run up to it. So it was a chance for him to screw over 3 guys that he'd already done one over on as well. But yeah, you're right. It's I mean, again, it's they don't think outside the box sometimes. Christian Cage is a guy who had mainstream appeal from his Attitude Era days. He was the him and Edge had that famous tag team, the 5-second pose and all that stuff. So he's somebody that has a bit of appeal. So yeah, it's just we'll go back to that word again, frustrating kind of booking from AEW. And the match itself really was. I mean, there's been worse wrestling matches, don't get me wrong, but it didn't really do much for anybody. I barely remember Hangman doing anything in it at all. Jay White was the only one that kind of got some kind of heat out of it, doing the Blade Runner on Maria Shafir, That was really the only kind of noticeable moment from the whole match.
Well, hopefully they are going to kick on and do something more interesting with this Death Rider stuff going into 2025. But just like we did at the end of our front page, going to look back at some of the best matches of 2024. I'll come to you first, Steve. What was your favourite match of the past 12 months? Or your favourite matches?
So, off the top of my head, Danielson versus Swerve, the main event, All In. Great story told in that one, and then the whole fairy tale ending of Danielson winning that sticks out. There was Sting and Darby Allin and the Young Bucks in the main event of Revolution. Sting's retirement match. I loved that. And the WWE side, there was the Drew and Punk, finally ending their blood feud in the Hell in a Cell, long last, bringing the Hell in a Cell back to prominence, using it as it should be used as a feud ender. But the number one match, and I just watched it about only an hour before we started here, because it's the two, I think, probably the two greatest performers of this era. It's Will Ospreay versus Bryan Danielson from Dynasty in April. Just what a match. I remember actually being a wee bit worried going into it, thinking, have they hyped it up too much? Because AEW themselves were promoting it as the dream match. And I thought, you've just cursed it. But no, they blew it away, and credit to the St. Louis crowd, because the noise we're making was just constant, and that added to it even more, the atmosphere of it. It's just a great match, and if you watch that and don't enjoy it, then don't bother with wrestling, because it's not for you. Because how could you not?
What about you, Liz? What have been your favourite matches of the year?
Being at All In, there was a lot of matches, especially Danielson and Swerve. I'm a sucker for ladder matches. I'm always looking for a good Royal Rumble, but we were short-handed at a couple of gimmick matches. But the one gimmick match that Steve's already mentioned was Punk versus McIntyre in Hell in a Cell, which I can't look past. There's been a lot of good matches on pay-per-views across all the companies. I'll give a special mention to Mustafa Ali and Mike Bailey. They had a great match for the X Division title, where Earl Hebner came out and did sort of like a backwards Montreal screw job to to redeem himself. That was a great match from their show. But yeah, Punk and McIntyre, the feud that they went through, obviously maybe it's a bit personal as well, because we were at Clash in the Castle. He screwed McIntyre. We've got prior history to McIntyre being screwed there. It gave you a bit sort of tribalness, towards us, the British fans, towards McIntyre. And we always believed that McIntyre was right in everything he said, but Punk, being such a good talker as well, he managed to bring you onto his side as well. So having one of the best talkers ever and having the best talker of the year in one feud between McIntyre and Punk, alongside their matches that were the bull rope match, the strap match, brilliant. The first match I had was good, but culminating in a Hell in a Cell with probably the best, if you look at it from bell to bell, best Hell in a Cell match we've ever had. Can't look past that, especially with them both being bloody. McIntyre doing it the hard way, with 16 stitches on the top of his head. Obviously, it was one of those matches that I'll show people. Already had done on Christmas Eve. We stuck some wrestling on. First one we went to was Punk McIntyre. And for a couple of people I was with weren't even wrestling fans. And by the end of it, they were like, I get it. You know what I mean? I get it. I get why you like this shit. And having a match that does it for the casuals and the non-wrestling fans as well as us diehards is something I can't look past for, match and feud of the year.
No, it was like on both counts. Well, in fact, another thing that you've said there, it was an amazing feud. The Bad Blood match was a great feud ender, and I know you've said there that in your opinion it's one of the best Hell in a Cell matches, bell to bell that there is. One of my favourite matches of the year happened a couple of weeks before that match, and I think influenced it slightly in terms of some of the spots that were in it, and that was Hangman against Swerve in the Cell. I think that whole feud again. You're talking about feuds of the year. That's been a full on 12-month, 13-month feud that Hangman and Swerve had, and the build up to it. This time last year we were talking about the blood drinking spot from the match, which made my knees weak and my dick hard, as I think was the quote on there. And I had similar feelings during that match, especially with the stapling going on, the cinder blocks in the match as well. Just some of it was absolute brutality. Hangman setting fire to Swerve's house in the lead up to it as well. Just making it so personal the whole way through. I think that's been my favourite thing in wrestling probably this year. Certainly in the AEW side anyway. It's been my favourite thing.
Yeah, I thought it was a horror show, wasn't it? That match, it was like in a good way. It was like it was, and then the hypodermic needle. Jesus Christ! It was
the needle shit. Yeah,
my God, man, it was like, it's a blood feud how it should go, and I think it was if you look back at stuff on from the 80s, stuff like Flair and Dusty used to have in the height of the 80s, and Harley Race and all them, they would always have these cage matches where they would just beat the fuck out of each other and they would just gush blood everywhere. And I think it's good that we're finally bringing that back into feuds as well and use proper feud enders.
No, it's been a great year for that kind of thing. I think a couple of honourable mentions need to go to, as you mentioned, Steve, the All In main event, but the All Out main event, the way that ended was absolute horror as well. You went from the elation and the feel good moment of the year with Danielson lifting the title at Wembley to a couple of weeks later being almost murdered in the ring by his best pals was just such a low point but a high point at the same time.
And Utah as well. Remember when he was selling it, actually crying at witnessing it happen as well.
I know that Tony Khan had said that AEW is for the sickos, and All Out was definitely for the sickos in that regard. That's some good mentions there, and I imagine those two, a few of those matches are going to come up when we get to our awards bit in just a wee minute. But we're going to jump to page 3 now, which is the gossip pages usually, but I'm going to use this to let you guys give me your predictions for what's going to happen in wrestling in 2025. So I want you to give me 3 predictions each as to what you think are likely to happen, and even if you've got some that are a bit outlandish, I'll take them off you as well.
Lewis, I'll let you go first, mate.
I'll think here. I think that Joe Hendry will be in the Royal Rumble match, and he will set up a feud with someone on the main roster in WWE. I think they'll bypass NXT, and I think he'll get a pay-per-view match on the main roster in 2025. Number 2, I think that John Cena will be in a world title match at WrestleMania and lose, and I think it'll set up a redemption story, and I think it'll be almost like Shawn Michaels going towards the world title, or he wanted the Undertaker. The Undertaker was the champion at the time. He wanted to get to the Undertaker, so it showed this desperate side, and he was just going nuts. I think they could play that card with John Cena as well. We've never really seen John Cena desperate. It seems like John Cena's always been, calm, composed, whatever happens. Control the controllables, as he always says. And he's always portrayed that in his character. But I think that showing a different side of John Cena, this is my last time. I know I've always said I didn't care about number 17. I just want to be happy and healthy and have the fans to have a good time. But I think you really draw into this, not a heelish side, but a side where it's like he can't control anything that he does. You know, he just fucking really wants that number 17, or he wants that Intercontinental title, or he wants that main event. And I think we could see a different side to John Cena there.
I would love to see him do. No, when he went to that stage of doing the open challenge thing, when that introduced Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, all that crew. I'd love to see him revisit that.
Yeah.
10 years on from that, have him go up against Owens, have him go up against Sami Zayn, all these NXT guys. You know, Punk again. You know, break out the fucking pile drivers and all sorts again, like he did with Punk at Money in the Bank. Just greatest hits tour. That's what I want to see for Cena, I think.
And number 3, in between two, I think that there's going to be, whoever it might be, maybe I'm being biased here, I think there's going to be another Scottish wrestler that makes it to the WWE or does big on NXT or WWE. That's just a bit of hope and a bit of bias, whoever it might be. I think we're going to have another one. We're due one. You know, obviously Gallus have done their thing. McIntyre's done his thing for 10 plus years, 15 plus years. We're due another one. So, you know, Chris, if you want to get the Lycra back on, help that prediction come true.
Sign Grado, you fucking cowards.
I know. And I think as a bold prediction, I think this is probably less likely to happen than anything I've said, or probably less likely to happen than Chris actually appearing and winning the Royal Rumble. And my third prediction is going to be that there's another episode of Wrestling Daft in 2025.
Well, I don't know. Falkirk Daft seems to be doing the business, so I think I think John's done the right thing in taking that off. They've got live shows and everything that they're doing with that.
No, he's Seth Rollins them in the back. You know, he's got a bigger and better things.
Right, Steve, give us your pedos, please.
Your pedos, did you say?
Number 3, Jimmy Savile.
2, Prince Andrew. Right. Surely, right, Kevin Owens, he's got to be getting a world title run. Come on, man. It's like he's put in the craft. He keeps things fresh. He's always engaging. He's one of those guys that whatever he does, people watch. He's probably the best heel in the company right now. Surely he's going over in that ladder match. Surely The Rock is going to cost Cody in that ladder match, and Kevin's going to get both the titles, the modern title and the winged eagle title, and hold him aloft at the top of the ladder. Set up him and
I'd love to see that.
Set up him and Cena for WrestleMania. Because I mean, as you were just speaking that, I think that's the match, isn't it? Cena win the Rumble and faces Kevin Owens. It's a full circle storyline there, isn't it? So come on, you know, it's the let's get that set up. My second prediction, you probably not like this one. Charlotte Flair to win the Royal Rumble, the Women's Royal Rumble.
I've seen a few supposed leaked Rumble cards going about, and apart from the one that had Fred and Rose West in it, a lot of them seem to make a bit of sense. And they had Charlotte as the winner and Becky as the runner-up in them. Now, obviously, these things are fake. There's no way that they're real. But Charlotte, they turning at the Rumble to win it would not surprise me in the slightest.
My next prediction ain't going to happen, right? But AEW and WWE to do something together. I don't know, like a show or do some kind of crossover thing with WWE on Netflix and AEW on Max. If they really get the streaming numbers that they both really want, and wrestling's on this big high wave of mainstream attention, cash the fuck in and do a show together.
Do you know, they'll end up on Family Feud.
Aye.
You know, Steve Harvey in the middle, and you'll have Team AEW, Team WWE, and they can just be making off-colour remarks to each other to try and win money for charity.
I mean, it'd be funny.
Makes sense.
It'd be funny as fuck. Like,
Clash of the Cans 2026, 2025, whatever you want to call it. Gotta have it.
No, I think again, depending on how well it does, because obviously Netflix is worldwide. I don't like what's the equivalent of Max here? Is that what
Max
Now
is
TV?
like, I kind of. I know
because HBO was always Sky Atlantic, and now all Sky streaming stuff's now TV.
So it's Max. It's not nearly as big, but it's big enough. I mean, Christ, it's the platform that Game of Thrones is on. So it's, I mean, and Game of Thrones and wrestling, it's geeky stuff written all over it, fucking perverts. So it's it's both each other's kind of audience.
Yeah, I think maybe not 2025. I think once the first year of the streaming goes, I think you'd maybe see try and see a bit of crossover there. But it's not out with the realms of possibility. Not out with the realms of possibility at all. But those are some solid picks for predictions. I'm going to visit that. I think the most likely of all of them is Big Joe in the Rumble.
Yeah.
And again, that could probably lead to him being the next big Scottish thing as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, let's be honest, like WWE have got this whole relationship with TNA because they're sneakily going to try and buy them out, aren't they? Eventually. Because they obviously want the talent. They want Josh Alexander. They want Rosemary. They want all those guys.
Well, I mean, Jordan Grace's contract's up in January, so she'll be a free agent come the Rumble. So you'd imagine that she'll get signed off the back of that. And again, she'll come in, and Tessa Blanchard will be the new women's face of TNA, and then that'll just run them into the ground.
That's one step forward, 455 kilometres back, surely.
I've read that there's a conspiracy theory. That's why the reason why they brought back it was like somebody from within TNA management hired her, thinking, the negative press that's going to get, and she's going to run the company into down, devalue it, and that's when WWE can come in with the offer.
Just tank it. Just absolutely tank it. Cool. Right, well, that's been the gossip page. So this will bring us on to our final section of the year on the heat sheet, which is our awards. We'll call them the Sheetys. I think we'll call them the Sheetys this year for the inaugural one. So this has kind of been chucked together. We had planned on doing all sorts over the advent calendar stuff we were doing, but it never came to fruition. But we are going to go through some categories and award them appropriately as we see fit. Steve's going to offer a nomination, Lewis is going to offer the nomination, and I am going to be the judge on there. So the Sheety nominations for Best Male Wrestler of 2024. Steve, I'll take your nomination first, and your reason why.
It's got to be Will Ospreay. Banger match after banger match. It's just insane. Like every pay-per-view match he had was pretty much a 5-starer. Started with the Takeshita match at Revolution, then my match of the year against Danielson Dynasty. Then it was Roderick Strong when he won the international title. Then it was the match with Swerve, the Forbidden Door. Then they had those two bangers with MJF, both for the international title. And then all the way up to now with the final with Okada there, and then with Fletcher. He's just had an insane year, and like every time when he comes out, the excitement from the crowd when they're going, Ospreay, and like that's now became like a signature wrestling chant up there with yes and what and etc. Because you're about to see a banger match. But then it ain't just about the matches as well. He's done great with promos as well. My one fear of him was I wasn't sure if the whole bruv pattern and all that was going to go over well with the Americans because they might not get that, but they've embraced it. You see signs saying bruv whenever he's coming out, and he's done great with his storytelling as well. Like coming out of the Danielson feud, he had that kind of guilty conscience of using the Tiger Driver on Danielson, so he was reluctant to use it, and it arguably cost him in the match against Swerve. He could have been the world champion had he used it, but he didn't. He eventually against MJF because that's MJF, and he asked for it. So he's just done great and it's more. It's much more than just the banger matches now. He's became a great all round wrestling talent, maybe the best all round wrestling performer in the world right now, and he will be for the next few years.
That's a good gambit there. Lewis, who's your nomination for Male Wrestler of the Year?
I'm going to paint this story of a scenario you might have. So Steve's just put Celtic 10-0 up here, and basically my gaffer's just told me, don't worry boys, it's 0-0. So I've come out for the second half here with no hope in hell of beating that. And my Dundee pick of the week is going to be Drew McIntyre. He's had, like we've talked about, all the banger matches he's had. He's had an up and down year. He's arguably had the feud of the year. If you don't, if you've missed, Swerve and Hangman, and he's won the world title. He's won the Money in the Bank. He's got as many accolades as Ospreay does in the year, but without it's almost show your it's like a maths exam. Show your answer, but show us you're working as well. Drew McIntyre's got the answer, but Will Ospreay's got 700 pages of working to show why his answer's right and why he's number one in the world. Was he number one in the PWI?
It was Cody was because PW's kind of half like shoot, half kayfabe, and you always usually go with the current WWE champion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's bullshit. I think that this is probably the year where I'd say over the last maybe 5 years or so that there's been a clear number one. There's like no real competitors of like the caliber of matches they've put on. Maybe the feuds haven't been as good. Maybe the promos haven't been as good by Ospreay, but the matches make up for it times a million. So yeah, this sounds like an Ospreay pitch here by me, but I'd say my choice for it is Drew McIntyre.
Okay, so the Sheety for best male wrestler of the year does go to Will Ospreay of AEW. Drew, like for the most part, I was thinking that I would give it to Drew myself. But when you do look back over the consistency that Ospreay's shown, he's not only shown up, he's shown out. He's improved immensely on the mic as well, as you were saying, Steve. And because I've not been as invested as such in the wrestling for the last wee while, and anything that I have watched of AEW, it has been Ospreay. That's what I've gravitated to. I've skipped through everything to watch his matches because I know that there's going to be something in it that's going to make me go, holy shit. There's going to be something that's like, how did you do that? There's going to be a bump or a section out, like the match with Darby the other week there. That code red spot, all of that was just unreal. And don't get me wrong, Drew has been absolute box office as well and must watch, but I think Will Ospreay is a deserving winner of the Sheety for Male Wrestler of the Year. So well done, Will. Well done, the Billy Goat. We'll shift on quickly to the best female wrestler of the year. Lewis, you can have first pitch on that one.
I'm gonna. It's kind of going to be the crossover that it's probably going to be one of your only crossovers, and I know it's only 2024, but your AEW WWE pay-per-view you might have. I do think on the WWE side you've had the likes of Rhea Ripley's had another strong year. Nia Jax probably had the best year that she's had on WWE TV in her whole career. And the NXT side, you've had the likes of Roxanne Perez and the two, Julia and Stephanie Vaquera coming to the scene. But purely down to levels of improvement and levels of character development, I'm going to give my nomination to Liv Morgan. I think that alongside, Nia Jax, she's been one that's had her best year of, work. She's won the women's title. She's headlined more shows than she's ever headlined, or she's been on the main women's title more times than she has done in her career. She's had title runs before, but she's never really established a character. She's just been this, sort of. She was an underdog story, and then she was, this sort of knockoff hardcore, candlestick badass. But this year she's really came into her own. She's turned heel from being a heel. It's something that's not often done, and that adds brownie points to her caliber. She's been in matches with, the likes of Nia Jax and Rhea Ripley and everything, and definitely held her own. There's not always been a Becky Lynch or a Mercedes Moné or a Charlotte Flair to sort of carry you through the match. She's had to do some of the heavy lifting herself this year, and she's really came into her own. And with the character work with the Judgment Day, she's got better on the mic. She's got more confident, and she's put some of her best matches she's ever had in her career on. So the WWE representative side of it is going to be Liv Morgan this year.
Smashing. Steve?
For me, 100% it's been Toni Storm. She had a great run as AEW Women's Champion, and she's proof as well that you can have a kind of silly gimmick in the modern day and make it a big success. Like she just put so much effort into that time as Toni Storm character and made it work brilliantly. And she's had like these great promos where she's like talking like an old timey silent film star, making up these weird stories like me and Stan Hansen had an affair back in 1988, all this weird stuff, and like she's been hilarious with it, and she's been great in every feud that she's had as well. Most of all, of course, our protege turned bitter nemesis Mariah May, and in turn look what a bigger star it's made Mariah May as well.
Did Toni Storm not just make her AEW debut the other week?
Aye, it's yeah, well, that again, like, playing an amnesia angle and making it interesting is great, and it's proof that AEW ain't all just about the wrestling. They're willing to do the kind of soap opera stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
And she makes it work.
That Toni Storm stuff that she's doing, where she's going back to being a rookie. She there's clips of her taking photos with fans and mucking in and stuff. Spud did that like years ago in TNA, I'm sure, where he had something had happened to him, and he went back and there was all these vignettes of him setting up chairs and helping build the ring and stuff like that, and going about giving workers handshakes and stuff. So she's retreading a really good storyline in that. But the two have given really compelling cases for both. I'd have thought Rhea Ripley would have been one of your picks, if I'm being honest. I thought Rhea has had an absolutely smashing year as well. But of the two that you guys have put forward, I think I'm going to go with Timeless Toni Storm for the Sheety Women of the Year. I'm not discounting anything that Liv Morgan's done, because I think she has had a really, really good year, which has mainly been down to a feud with Rhea Ripley and winning the championship off of Becky as well, wasn't it? It was Becky she beat for the title.
So one of those ones.
Yeah, but I just think the way that the whole Timeless Toni Storm character, the matches that she was having, and the way that she's elevated a section of that women's division, mainly through Mariah May, I think that's deserving of the Sheety there. And that's not my AEW bias kicking in. I just think that she's done... Toni did more with what she was given than Liv has, although Liv has had a good year as well. So the Sheety for that is going to Timeless Toni Storm. You are our women's wrestler of the year. Now, match of the year, you gave some pretty compelling cases for your favourite matches of the year, so we don't need to go into all the reasoning on this one. But Steve, what was your match of 2024.
It was Danielson versus Ospreay from Dynasty.
Danielson v Ospreay, Dynasty. And Lewis?
Punk McIntyre, Bad Blood.
Of those two, I'm going to award the Sheety to the Bad Blood Hell in a Cell match, just because of the violence in it, because of the build to it, and because of everything that was around it, from the bracelets to the thumbtacks to that bit with the steps right on Drew's back, and then the toolbox to the forehead. It was I think a lot of people were underwhelmed with the two matches before it, because the SummerSlam strap match was supposed to be a lot of people felt it was going to be the feud ender, but it was more like it was very much a WWE version of a strap match with the big traffic lights and all that on it.
Yeah.
But the Bad Blood match, it definitely felt it didn't feel like an authentic match, whereas there was nothing inauthentic about that Hell in a Cell match. So, match of the year from the Heat Sheet goes to friend of the show Drew McIntyre and other friend of the show CM Punk. Now, show of the year or event of the year, Lewis. What's been your favourite pay-per-view or PLE of the year?
I'm going to keep personal bias out of the way in terms of, I've been to Clash at the Castle, I've been to All In. Those were good shows. It's always better when you're there, but there's no looking past WrestleMania Night 2, I don't think. It's... Hopefully I'm saying that again this year, something I'll have been to and can put it forward as the best show. But yeah, there was banger matches on it from the start to the finish. There was great moments. There was, something for a little bit for everyone on it, and it just headlined with, whether you thought the show was a 6 out of 10, it put it instantly up to a 9 out of 10 with that main event. It had callbacks to, Rock, Cena. It had callbacks to the breakup of the Shield. It's had callbacks to Dusty. It's had, it's used the right amount of history and the present time as well, and the future in it, to create one of the best shows and one of the best main events in WrestleMania history. And the ending almost had you in tears. If you really think about it, if you break it down from being these guys who do it as a job and got money, I'll sometimes, like something a wrestling fan's done a million times, you drive in your car and you just doze off, or you hear a song and you just picture yourself winning a world title at WrestleMania. It's something you do for every wrestling fan and every wrestler. And if you just think about it in terms of that, the hardships that Cody's gone through, the stuff that his dad never managed to do, losing his dad at that age as well, in the heights of his career, to be on the shoulders of all his friends in front of everyone that was fan driven. They didn't want that to happen. They wanted The Rock to be there, and it wasn't just a booking decision, it was a movement that made him, win that match and win that title, and the whole story, and the legacy behind the Rhodes family, and him just being up there on everyone's shoulders holding the big gold belt. Well, not the big gold belt, but it is a big gold belt. At the end of WrestleMania 40, was just different gravy.
Smashing. Steve, what are you going to try and beat that with?
There was some cracking pay-per-views. I want to give a mention to AEW Revolution. I thought that was brilliant, with the Sting retirement match, and how hellacious that was. But All In, for me, was a real highlight. I think from start to finish, there was some. There was a lot to remember from it. You had a brilliant feud ender with MJF and Ospreay in that match. You had the MJF playing the chicken shit American heel, calling himself the American champion, not the international champion, coming out in the the Uncle Sam outfit, and then the weeks running up to it, he was running down Britain and all that, mentioning like the riots that had been happening all over England, and taking the piss out of our food and all this, stuff, and then culminating with Ospreay hitting the Tiger Driver on and getting that huge pop and reclaiming the title. There was the casino gauntlet match where we got Ricochet's debut, Nigel McGuinness coming out to Fucking in the Bushes by Oasis. That felt fitting as well. And there was that fairy tale main event with Swerve and Danielson. You had all the memorable moment of Danielson looking over at his family while Swerve's kicking him in the chest, and seeing Danielson's looking at his kids going, I love you so much. And it's just like so heart-wrenching. And he pulls off the miracle win. It was just like a big stadium show done right as well. And that Wembley crowd, I know it wasn't an absolute sellout. I don't know what the number was, but it wasn't a sellout yet. You'd be convinced there was 100,000 people there.
I had about 9 beers, which made probably enough noise for 3 people. It was just fucking looks back and everything. Thank God I got on video, because by the end it was such a show that you just fucking, there's so much to remember and so much to drink that it's just all meshed in one. But when you go back and look at it the next day, it's what a show that was.
Yep, I think the two biggest shows by the two biggest wrestling companies should be the ones that we're picking from here. Obviously, Clash at the Castle has got good relevance to the three of us for different reasons on there. Other great shows like Money in the Bank was a decent show as well. In Toronto, the Backlash in France, AJ Styles getting the biggest pop he's had in about a decade. That and again the Cody match, Cody and AJ in that match was great. You also had numerous AEW pay-per-views that were inconsistent, but the highs were very high on there as well. But I think just because of, as you described, Lewis, the culmination of Cody's story, the build and the movement around it, and then all the cameos in that main event on night 2. I think WrestleMania night 2 has to be the Sheety or the Heat Sheet show of the year. So congratulations to Triple H, who did not pump himself up at the very end of that at all to make it all about him. And I think that kind of rounds out our awards. I mean, we could go on forever, about moments of the year, botches of the year. I think we discussed breakout star of the year. I suppose we can do that one. Who would be your breakout star of 2024, Steve?
I mentioned her briefly earlier, Mariah May. I think she's came out of nowhere almost and became this instant star with AEW. She's having a really good run as champion, and she had the heel turn of the year, definitely. I think if I were to pick maybe a moment of the year in terms of a visual, that heel turn was brutal and the stuff a nightmare, like battering Tony Storm with the heel of her shoe, and Tony gushing with blood, and giving that over dramatic sell of it all. And I'm thinking really put the fear of God in you. And I thought, that's how you do a heel turn. That's brilliant. And she's been fantastic as this sort of psycho bitch, really, in raising hell with all of our opponents. I mean, we're talking about a woman who slapped her own mum in the middle of a title match in Wembley in her home fucking town. I mean, that is the balls to do that is brilliant. And she shows that she's got high intelligence as well. That she really knows little things like that. Is what it takes to become a big star.
Awesome, that's a good one put forward. And Lewis?
My breakout star of the year is going to be the same nomination I'd have for the big meaty man of the year, and the cunt I wouldn't want to meet in a back alley superstar of the year as well, and that is all Obafemi. He's gone from. He's probably one of the quickest superstars I've gone from watching him have his first match to instantly going, I think it would be credible that he turns up on Raw on Monday and challenges Cody Rhodes to a world title match and wins without going, WWE's not real. You know, like, I would think, fucking fair enough, big, massive tank of a man, bigger than Brock Lesnar, comes out that can do moves that he does. Like he's everything that they wanted Omos to be, and a million times more. You know, he's like the size of Omos and the strength of Bobby Lashley. You know, and the strength of Brock Lesnar. He's got a future in the next 2, 3, 4 years. Could just go United States title, world title, NXT title, United States title, world title. Just win the next 2 years, and it wouldn't, or maybe even the next year, and it wouldn't, surprise me. So that'd be my choice.
Cool. Two very, very strong ones, but I'm going to proffer one of my own and go for it, and I'm going to say Kyle Fletcher. I think Kyle Fletcher is the dude for 2025. I think, especially the last 4 or 5 months, with all the Don Callis stuff, trying to get out of the shadow of Will Ospreay, shaving his head, changing his look, getting rid of Mark Davies as, in that brutal fashion that he did, and just the way that he's showed up and showed out. He's got that affiliation that we spoke of earlier on with Ospreay, where they've got that personal feud, but there's also that one-upmanship that's going on with them. And I just think, he's got all the flippy dippy shit, but there's a bit of the Randy Ortons about him as well. I don't know if it's just the look since he shaved his head, but he can speed up, he can slow down, he can be methodical. He targets. He's very good at targeting areas on people. He's got that smug brashness. Because, when he first came in to AEW, I was thinking he could probably be like the Austin Theory of AEW. He's got that cockiness, he's got a bit of swagger about him. But this current version of him just now, where, he's dialed in, he's still got the cockiness, but he's backing it up with banger matches. And I think 2025 is going to be amazing for them. Maybe a TNT run, maybe have him win the own, whatever you do with him. I think he's going to have a great year.
He's going to have some big the
Aussie show as well. I think that's going to be class as well. So I'm gonna outrank the two E's, and I'm going to give breakout star of 2024 to Kyle Fletcher on there. And that wraps up the heat sheet for the year as well. It's been a fantastic year of wrestling, fantastic year of moments, and a fantastic year of podcasting. We've maybe not been here every week to give you the rundown, but we've done what we could. We fully understand how difficult it is when life gets in the way to put out weekly stuff. It may or may not be weekly coming into 2025. We'll need to have a discussion about how we push things on, but certainly, with the Royal Rumble coming up in a few weeks' time, I'm sure we'll be wanting to put out some stuff for that. But to everybody that's watched, to all of our dozen subscribers, to everyone that's followed us in socials and listened to us for more than 30 seconds, thank you for doing so throughout this year. It's been great being able to talk wrestling to you and with you guys, Lewis and Steve and Billy and Craig as well. So for me to you guys, it's been great. Lewis, Steve, Happy New Year when it comes. And whenever we speak to you again in 2025, between now and then, however you enjoy your wrestling, whenever you're feeling the heat, make sure to stick with the sheet or whatever that is. We'll work this out for 2025. Cheerio.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.